Welcome to the 2 Decades Too Late podcast, everyone. I am Brad, hanging out with Josh.
How's it going?
Yeah. This is the podcast where we review albums that are turning 20 years old, mostly metal for whatever it's worth. We each give an individual score of 1 through 5 based on 4 different parameters. So there's a maximum number of 20 from each of us and a maximum of 40 total. Yeah. One total. And I'm going to get this in... total. Yeah. That's not confusing, probably.
It's aggravating.
That would be terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you got a point total between 1 and 41.
Yeah. Gross.
It's awful. Normally I dick around before I get to this, but I actually have a question, so I kind of need to get to it. But this week we are reviewing the album The Curse by Atreyu.
Yeah.
And my question to you is, would you consider yourself an Atreyu fan?
No.
Right, but I thought I was. But then I started down this rabbit hole and realized I'm not. I've listened to 2 whole albums by them.
Yeah.
And maybe spotty song here or there, but once they got to the Anchor, whatever, Sail Anchor album, whatever, I didn't listen to that at all. I remember hating it, in fact, and then I went back and listened to it again, and I don't like it.
Anchor Sail's Lead Paper.
Yes. What is it actually? Okay, Lead Sails Paper Anchor.
That wouldn't work.
I
just
no.
if you're building a boat, don't take that advice.
Also, if you're building a boat, why?
Paper boat would work better.
True.
It worked out for Georgie and it.
That is true. Mythbusters made a boat out of duct tape.
That's a good call. Do that if you can.
For sure. Or just don't build a
if you're out there.
Build a boat.
Build that shit out of duct tape.
Yeah.
But no, I would say like I was an Atreyu fan, like for Suicide Notes and Butterfly Kisses, and then like half of this album, and then they kind of took that divergent path, or we took the divergent path to where they got too successful, and we're like, no, not these guys. But then the albums also weren't very good. And we're going to get into it, but this album also is not very good, I didn't think.
They, like, Butterfly Kisses is my favorite album by them, but I don't know if that's because it's, like, I thought it was a nostalgia thing, but I think it's just because they made one good album.
That's entirely possible.
Maybe. I didn't listen to everything. I started, like, kind of, like, I couldn't even get through whatever the fuck stupid album title that is.
Lead Shoot Paper Fart.
Yeah, I couldn't even get through it. Yeah, I'm surprised. I just wanted to ask because if before I started this, if you would have asked me, I would have said yes, probably.
Yeah.
Only because 20 years ago I was.
Yeah, as much as anything else.
Yeah. And, well, go ahead and if you want to get into the band a little bit, because I have another question, but I think it might be best for after we kind of introduce who Atreyu was, whatever.
Yeah. So, Atreyu band, they formed in 1998, which I thought was surprising.
Very, yeah.
So, active for 6 years at this point. Formed in Yorba Linda, California, which is pretty sweet. Under the name, I think, Retribution, but changed the name due to like lineup changes and wanting to go to a different sound to Atreyu, the mythical creature from the Never-Ending Storybooks. Like, I've never found a connection other than that's what they chose, but that's what they chose.
Yeah, true enough.
Apparently still active, although they had a little hiatus from 11 to 14, and they had the one prior release, Suicide Notes and Butterfly Kisses, in 2002, which is amazing.
Yep.
Lots of good
It's a
stuff
great
on
album.
this.
Yep.
Yep. This album in particular was released on June 29th of 2004, and I remember like going to buy it with you.
Yep.
Like we definitely did that. And released
100%.
on Victory, so totally
Not weird.
awesome. Not weird at all, especially for 2004.
No, Victory was all over it. Also, I don't know if you remember, but we didn't just buy this album when we went to FYE. We got The Oncoming Curse, too, because they both came out on the same date.
The Oncoming Storm?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sick.
Yeah. Yep. I remember thinking, what a good day. This
It
is
was
just...
a good day.
Spoiler alert, one of those albums is better than the other.
Yes, I would say so.
By a pretty severe margin. But yeah, so... Here's my other question for you. After listening to this album, which is labeled a metalcore album,
It is.
would you call it a metalcore album?
I don't think I would. I never really considered them metalcore in the traditional sense. Maybe Suicide Notes and Butterfly Kisses, but it was always the drummer singing that kind of took them out of the metalcore realm for me. Not that I don't like it, but I don't think it lands in the genre very well.
Well, it's funny. So just like if you were asking me before I started this, if I was a fan of Atreyu, I would have said yes. But if you would have asked me before this if I thought Atreyu was a metalcore band, I would have said yes. And I don't think that at all now. Same with Butterfly Kisses, because honestly, they're way closer to a screamo. I mean, if you're maybe post-hardcore, but like if I were to ask you which, like The Curse specifically, since that's what we're talking about, if that sounds more like the Under Oath, They're Only Chasing Safety, or if that sounds more like Killswitch Engage, The End of Heartache,
Super
to me
fair.
it sounds way closer to Under Oath, They're Only Chasing Safety.
Yep.
Or Unearth the Oncoming Storm, which is valid because it came out the exact same day. I wouldn't say they sound anything like.
No.
And Unearth is dead on metalcore, especially in 2004. It's just all things I didn't realize. Even like, I don't know. I just had a complete
I'm with you because
blind spot.
And it's funny because one of the reviews actually uses, for the first time that I've seen in 2004, uses the word metalcore. And it's like this new genre of these two mashed up things. Like, it really isn't either. Like, I don't get the hardcore influences, and I don't get a lot of the metal influences apart from just having screaming.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was. That was my point as well. Like, there is screaming.
Yes.
But no other. There is very little metal and very little hardcore. Honestly, the hardcore even less so. I mean, they don't. They have like a breakdown every 9 songs or something, but like, it's not even a traditional breakdown. Generally, it's kind of someone who's trying to, like, an alien came to Earth and is trying to pretend that they're a hardcore band.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just very surprised by a lot of this.
Same.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a lot different than I remember too. Like, I apparently never really listened to the second half of the album, which makes sense because there's an interlude, Dead Center, that does not need to be there and does not need to be 2 minutes long. But it's like 2 completely different albums before the interlude and after the interlude, in my opinion.
I mean, I totally agree. And it sounds like a band that was trying to finish an album. Like, it doesn't sound like they had however many complete ideas, 11 complete ideas, or no, 13, excuse me. It sounds like a band that probably went into the studio with 8 complete ideas and then had to figure the rest out.
Right.
Well, I mean, we can get into the songs. I do think, too, it's kind of funny because they're not from exactly Orange County, but I consider them in the group of Orange County bands, like, that came out around the exact same time, like Throwdown and Bleeding Through, which Well, I can get into it a little later when
I
we talk
feel
about
like
the album
they're
specifically.
as Orange County as they are metalcore. Like, I feel like somebody would be like, yeah, but they're from Yorba Linda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah, I don't know. This was just a
This was an
it's
interesting
a weird one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
wouldn't have guessed that it would be.
No, same. Actually, I thought this was going to be like a pretty boring, run of the mill sort of situation, and because I was thinking like, how are we going to be interesting with Atreyu after Eagles of Death Metal? But
Right.
and maybe you could argue we're not interesting about anything, and that's fair. But
Right.
this turned out more interesting than I expected.
I agree.
I do like the intro, first track, Blood Children, and introduction. I think it's not too long. I think it does a good job of building to track 2.
Yeah, for sure. I don't remember it at all. Like, I must have just always skipped it. Like, oh, next.
Yeah, well, because next is Bleeding Mascara, which is
Right.
maybe the best song on the album, or at least arguably one of the best songs on the album.
Yeah.
2 minutes 26 seconds is good for me. I like short songs normally, especially from this sort of type of thing.
Especially on this album, some of the longer ones are kind of like long and repetitive, and it's like you could have made this 2.5 minutes and it would have been way better.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on this album. A lot of I don't know. They seem in Miss Machine, I was very upset about a reviewer calling them aimless. This is aimless.
This is aimless. I would argue that this is aimless for sure.
Yes, I would say with a great deal of confidence that this is an aimless album. I don't know, man. I just they're not a good band.
Yeah. I do agree with
They're talented.
Talent, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they're talented
Not a
for
good
sure.
band.
I just don't. Some things are greater than the sum of their parts, and some things are not. Some things are exactly.
These parts are greater than their sum.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel. I don't want to shit on them too hard because I didn't think anything on this was bad. I guess like it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of fine.
There's
and
some weird decisions.
Yeah, very. Everything about Bleeding Mascara is none of that because
It's not.
it's a very, very good song. I like it when someone uses the word wraith. I don't think we get that a lot.
No.
You kill a lot of those in Witcher 3, so that's cool.
That is super
that's
cool.
Where,
fucking rates.
yeah. I also, as I am wont to do at this point, read the lyrics as I was reviewing.
Oh no.
I was a little worried in Bleeding Mascara that this was maybe a band using a vampire story as an analog to talk shit about women liking sex sort of thing.
Oh.
But I don't think that it is. It more sounds like he is in the camp of Brandon from Bleeding Through who just cannot get over whatever breakup happened in 1999.
Yeah. Well, I
And it
remember
seems like
being on the tour bus, like they were like, "Oh man, he's drinking a lot." Like,
yeah, that was a weird. For those of you out there that don't know, Josh has a cousin, but at the time in 2005 would have been when we did this because it was after I graduated high school, I think. She was dating or married to a roadie.
dating a
Your
guy
cousin?
who was friends with the band. I don't even know if he was necessarily a roadie, but
That's how I remember it. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. Either way, you, Eric, and I ended up hanging out on Atreyu's tour bus for what was an amazing show. It was them, Norma Jean, Unearth. It was such a good show.
it was really good.
I forget what it was called. It was definitely sponsored by Red Bull. And because that was the first time I ever had an energy drink.
Same.
Was on their tour bus because they gave
I called
us.
it a bread bowl because I
sure did,
thought
and we have
that's
not
what he offered me.
Yep, and we have not let that go since. That's a 20-year-old reference that will remain. They were complete and utter douchebags, every single one of them. Well, the one just sat there and didn't say a word, and seemed absolutely miserable. But they were awful people, as far as I could tell. I think that was maybe the first time. I've obviously got worse with this as I've gotten older, but just immediately not liking someone or a group of people, which I do all the time now. But back then I was a little more open-minded. But I just remember being like, let's get the fuck off of this bus. This is awful. Like,
never meet your
suck.
heroes, people.
They don't exist. So yeah, don't. Just don't. Yeah, it was terrible. They're terrible.
Not over the breakup at all. And the thinly veiled vampire analogy.
Yes.
Which totally falls apart by the second half of the album, by the way. Like, they just kind of leave that in the dust.
Well, they don't, but they do. It's like, it just gets a little less heavy-handed with it. From what I gather, this is about him going through a breakup, hating the person at first, then realizing he doesn't hate them, and that he should have been better.
Huh.
That's a good story. That's a good lesson to learn. Generally, that's kind of how people are, and they just happen to use it in the 2004 way of talking about it as if it was a vampire story, which this is the most 2004 thing in my opinion, that we've reviewed.
It is super of its time, like, because oh god, what's the movies that I love? The vampire ones.
Oh, Underworld.
Underworld, yeah. Those were out hot and heavy. Like, vampires were a big deal in 2004. And this just kind of steered right into that.
Yep. 100%.
Also, apparently, like, some of the reviews were talking about the lyrical content being also kind of tied to them touring on Suicide Notes for, like, the better part of those 2 years in between releases. So, and you can kind of tell that on Five Vicodin Chased with a Shot of Clarity. It's like, okay, you're talking about being on the road. I get it. It was tough.
Yeah. Well, and they if I remember correctly, toured relentlessly on Butterfly Kisses. It was insane. I have a very thorough breakdown of this. Here's another question for you. Apparently this is just that episode, because honestly I was so surprised the whole time. I just kept being surprised and was like, what the hell, is Josh in this boat at all? Is Right Side of the Bed the most overrated single from that era of metalcore music ever made? Because I don't like it. Like,
it's as fine as the rest.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
If you were going to pick a single, that's probably the one to pick.
True. I don't argue that point. But also, with everyone else's singles, I feel like this one was played to death. And upon re-listen, maybe I'm just sick of it. Maybe I just didn't realize how sick of it I was until I listened to it again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this was like this era and genre's version of fucking, like, Smells Like Teen Spirit for like 2 years. I don't know if I just was so sick. I didn't even, I don't know. I think it's vastly overrated. That's at track 3, Right Side of the Bed. If you've heard an Atreyu song, I guess I don't even know. I know they got
It wouldn't be
popular.
This, probably.
Probably not. I want to think that, but I know they got huge later.
It would probably be something off a Death Grip on Yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, that or
a Death Cab on Cutie.
I don't know. I just had no idea how much I didn't know about this band or their music. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, they were sick in 2004. But then,
yeah, for sure.
After that, you could kind of take it or leave it.
Yeah, and you're right. Track 4, This Flesh a Tomb. I like that song a lot. That one's a good one for me.
It is super good. I don't love the intro's sick, but I don't love the dead stop about 3/4 of the way through. I mean, that's how they ruined Deanne the Arsonist on Suicide Notes. They ruined this song,
True.
I feel like. I feel like they kind of just find really creative ways to ruin songs.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, that was the fashion at the time. And they were not the only ones doing that. But you're not wrong at all. I will say the part where they do stop it very bluntly is cool, and that they change the bass tone under it, which is kind of something. It sounds like it's from like a 70s prog record.
Yeah, they input some like technical noise arrangements in there. So like I did pick up on that.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, I guess. But so let me ask you a question, Brad.
What am I thinking? What am I thinking of?
What?
Let me ask you this one time.
Oh, no.
Oh, Avengers.
Okay.
Not Infinity War. Actually, yeah, Infinity War. Anyway, go ahead.
Sick.
Yeah.
What did you think about the spoken word vocals on this album? Like comparing it to Misery Signals.
They didn't do it as much, which is good, but where they chose to do it was awful. I mean, there was what song? Let's see. There is a song where I wrote about this.
Super weird and like I don't love it in the context of the vampire theme either. Like it just feels gross.
Yeah, it does. Track 7, the Remembrance Ballad.
Oh yeah.
There's such a sick part in that where the bass is just crushing. I mean, it's so good, and he is shitting all over it by doing that dumb fucking talk vocal. I mean, that part is one of the best parts on the whole album, if it wasn't for him making it bad.
Yeah. I might hate this song, actually, after having listened to it. Like, the intro starts so loud. Then he just stops and talks. The drummer's verse is sick, though. But it's a long 4.5 minutes.
It is.
If they go over, I was gonna say if they go over 4 minutes, it's pretty much a tragedy. Because even on the previous track, The Crimson, I had written down at first maybe the best complete song, and then I wrote never mind, don't like the spoken vocals. And then I wrote gets a little long too. So I really fell off hard on that one.
Yeah, true. And I do like that song, but you're absolutely right. I will say, lyrically, I appreciate a Robert Smith from The Cure call out saying that, there's the Boys Don't Cry song by The Cure. He says Robert Smith was wrong. Boys do cry. That's kind of cool. And then he also calls out Anne Rice.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Which is I appreciate very much, because clearly that's what this is. You watched Interview with the Vampire when it was on HBO and wrote an album.
Tormented. Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor tortured Louis.
I know. Right. I might have to watch that.
It's good.
That
I recently rewatched
is also a very long movie.
Very long.
Doesn't need to be. It could be half hour shorter than it is.
Yeah, I'd say.
And I don't know if you'd miss much. Anyway, this is another song with the Crimson at track 6 that my first note is metalcore ? Again, I'm not so sure. Because it's just not. It starts out so screamo. It's like the most screamo intro maybe on the album, and there are a lot of them. I like an interlude at track 8. I think it's cool. I think the guitars play off each other pretty well. Also, bass tone on this album is incredible.
It's really good sometimes. Like they mess with it a lot, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean that's true, but the general tone that's just throughout, I think, is because and we'll get into this more. I do like the production on this album more than I actually like the album itself.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Interestingly, though, the bassist, Mark McKnight, who's credited, apparently did not record on it. It was a session bassist.
Yeah, which is funny. So I have this whole write-out in my high-level the bassist. You just said his name. What's his name? Mark McKnight, which is a sick name, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
His scream vocals, his harsh vocals, are very, very good, and they're on all subsequent albums. He actually, for the most part, from what I can tell live, handles harsh vocal duties now. Like,
okay.
Brandon, is his name Brandon, the drummer?
Brandon Soller.
Yeah. He screams as well, but, like, I watched a live version of Lip Gloss and Black.
Okay.
From like a year ago. And yeah, McKnight basically handles all of the scream vocals in that. And it's sick. So good. Yeah, his vocals are sick. So I'm in the middle of a song, and my thought was, it's really a shame that they didn't use his vocals on this, because I know he's on it, and he's on every other record, or at least the other records that I've heard. Right. He stands out, like the song. What was the Underworld song?
Dude, I don't know.
Damn it. Well, whatever. Her Portrait in Black.
Okay.
Which was on the Underworld 2 soundtrack, which is apparently the most elusive piece of music in the face of the Earth. Like, it exists nowhere. You can get a physical copy from Amazon that's like $30, but digitally in the US it just doesn't exist. But that song's really, really good, and his harsh vocals are on that, the bassist, and it's so good, and I was really sad about it. I was like, I wonder why they didn't. I mean, that's a tool in the tool belt. And it's he wasn't on it at all. So that explains it.
Just a quick interlude. The rest of the members, Alex Varkatzis is the main screamer. Dan Jacobs, lead guitar. Travis Miguel, rhythm guitar. Mark McKnight is credited as bass, but did not record the bass.
Right.
And Brandon Soller, drums, percussion, clean vocals, keyboards, programming, which he's not credited as playing drums anymore. They've got a different drummer.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, he's just straight up the vocalist now.
Yep.
And they are worse for it.
He's a good drummer.
He's a great drummer. Honestly,
he's a good sorbet.
Just avoid the geese like everyone else. I think he is probably the shining star of this whole album. I like his clean vocals are unique. They don't sound like he's not trying to sound like anybody else.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing the super high pitched thing, which most other clean vocalists in the genre were. He doesn't sound whiny at all, which is nice. Yeah. And he's a great drummer. Man, he's a good drummer.
Him and that session bassist probably should have just done a thing.
For sure, I would have listened to that. Yeah.
Yep.
Because every time that they shine together, actually, like an interlude, I love that the kick is following what the bass is doing. I love that anytime anybody does it.
Right.
Which you think would happen more often than it does. It's kind of weird that it doesn't, since that's,
Yeah.
But it's like I don't know. Honestly, I wish an interlude, strangely, might be my favorite song in this album now that I'm like thinking
it's possible
out loud.
Because I don't really like Alex's vocals on a lot of it.
That's interesting. It's yeah.
You want to talk about somebody who sounds like they're shredding their larynx?
Oh God, and it also sounds like, and maybe this is more of a discussion in the production part, but it's small, so I mean it doesn't really matter. But it sounds like whoever they recorded with let him cup the mic, which is
100%. They let him cup the mic. Like, you can tell all the time.
Yeah, unless that's like a filter or something, but. Yeah, the guy just sounds like he did it for years, so and as far as I can tell, he never had any like problems, so he must have been okay, but it sounds like he's doing it in the worst way possible.
Yeah. Sounds wretched.
It's like Yeah, it's like 50-50 for me. When I like his harsh vocals, I like them a lot, but when I don't, I really, really don't.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair.
um,
What about the back half of the album after an interlude? Not the interlude, just an interlude.
yeah, an interlude.
You know what? Fuck it. Let's put in an interlude. What should we call it? I don't
interlude.
know. Yeah.
We've had that conversation as a band, you and I, and
absolutely.
She's a Nightmare multiple times. Remember what was the 1660
62 or
no. Yeah, that was just on a skid at Wober. I didn't know what it meant or anything. And we named a song that. And Italian Rose, same thing. We had 2 songs named after things written on skids at a mustard factory.
Hell yeah.
And then one time, Josh Walden and I almost slid off an exit ramp. So we had urgency on the exit ramp.
Yep.
Proudly embarrassed. So the back half of this album's odd. It seems completely disjointed. Again, aimless. I would love the same person that listened to Miss Machine and thought it was aimless and listen to this and not say the same thing just because they don't understand musical context. But
right.
I don't know. Core setting is pretty solid. There's a line in it that I'd like a lot. I'd redecorate the walls with your inner thoughts, but I'm afraid it's the wrong shade of red. Yeah. That's a cool line.
That is a cool line. I like that. Interestingly, no vocals from Brandon on this song.
Yeah, I needed something different at this point, so I'm glad core setting is the way it is, and it's only 2 minutes, 10 seconds, so you knock it out real quick.
Yep.
I kind of needed that. Also, when he says shade of red, it sounds like he says shit a brick, the way he enunciates it. So if you listen to that song and you hear him say shit a brick, I genuinely thought those were the lyrics at a point in time. But he's not. But it's even knowing what it is, I still hear shit a brick.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Demonology and Heartache. I always liked how this one started.
10, yeah.
It's pretty sick. It's a little thrash.
Yeah.
And then I was like, what happened to the tempo at the end? Like, it definitely sped up, right?
Yeah. Okay. It's my second. So I was at this point. The worst song for me on the album was the Remembrance Ballad. Yep. And once I got to this song, I no longer knew if that was the worst song for me because it could be Demonology and Heartache at track 10. I like it when they play off each other, the harsh vocals and the clean vocals.
Yeah.
And I wish they did it more. Like, they don't do it very often, which is fine. And when they do it, it's very impactful. But they could probably do it a little more without it being, like, old. They do it pretty cool. A good job of that on Demonology at track 10.
Yeah. Sometimes they just end up, like, overshadowing one another, though.
Yeah. It sounds like they're both trying to fight for, like,
the glory,
being the main person. Yeah. And I guess joke's on Alex, because now the drummer just is the vocalist of the band, so I guess he wins in the long run. Track 11, My Sanity, on the Funeral Pyre. I do like that song. It's the closest thing, I think, to being an actual metalcore song.
Yeah.
Capital M, capital C metalcore. But it's very heavy, and I like that. Again, I kind of needed something. Everything they do that is heavy feels forced.
That's true.
I almost think that if they just decided to be a screamo band on purpose and just lean into that, they would have probably been a better band.
You're probably right.
Because it's when they try to fit in to their peers' like line of thinking is when they fall the most.
Yep. I think
I don't
you're
know.
right on
It's
the
fine.
finishing a thought, though. Like, because My Sanity on the Funeral Pyre, Nevada's Grace, and Five Vicodin, like, those all feel like they're tied to the touring more so than the vampire analogy.
Yeah. I
Like, I don't. Maybe that's where he's realizing, like, oh, I could have done better and not been on tour, and my girlfriend wouldn't have dumped me type situation.
maybe. Nevada's Grace. You say Nevada or Nevada?
Nevada.
I say both. I don't think I'm consistent at all when it comes to that.
Aunt Gwen.
Which one's right?
Oh, can't you? That's it.
The lyrics for that are pretty good because, yeah, you're right. I mean, that's when he starts talking just nothing but positively about this quote-unquote vampire person.
The melody seems off on this song.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird.
Super weird.
For how talented they are individually, I don't understand how they land on some of the melodic choices that they made.
I agree.
Because it's like, that's not off key, but
it's not the right note.
I don't know. Yeah, something's wrong. Yeah. Though I will say, speaking of that, on the Crimson track 6, not to backtrack too far, the key changes on that in the chorus at the end is real sick.
Yeah.
Just for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, sometimes they do it well, and then sometimes they don't.
Not so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange. By track 13, Five Vicodin Chase with a Shot of Clarity, I was so over this.
Yeah.
I mean, I almost couldn't even finish the song. I was just like, I just want this to be done.
It's definitely like very of 2004. Like I could see kids, us, chanting this in the crowd.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, these lyrics mean so much to my soul. But now, like, I don't like the dissonance at all. The song itself is super out of place. I mean, maybe not by track 13, but definitely within the first half of the album. I'm like, what are you doing with this?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, the breakdown it's bad. Like,
It's bad. It's a bad breakdown.
Again, it's an alien coming down to Earth and trying to fake being in a hardcore band. Like,
it's good dinner.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of want to be clear that I like this album more than I don't overall.
Sure.
But when I look into the individual tracks, it sounds like that's not true.
Kind of a close tie.
Yeah. Before we get into the review, one thing I'm just going to go ahead and say now, the re-release of this album, the whatever version.
Deluxe version.
Deluxe edition, yeah, has You Give Love a Bad Name on it, and I am adding that to the playlist in addition to whatever our favorite songs are.
It's so good.
I don't want this to be an every week thing, but come on.
Yeah. No one's going to be sad to hear that song.
No. Well, that is 13 songs worth of discussion that came out to be maybe mediocre.
Mediocre at best, I would say.
Yeah. Again, this is a situation I just did not expect at all. I don't know what I expected now because I've so thoroughly washed whatever my initial expectation was out.
Yeah,
so I can't even tell you what I was thinking, but I didn't. This isn't what I thought was going to happen.
The nostalgia didn't hold up on this one.
No, that's you know what? Well done by you. There are a lot of things that nostalgia helps me get through from this period. And I'm surprised to what extent there's none of that here. Suicide, what is it? Suicide
Notes and Butterfly Kisses.
Yeah. Nostalgia does easily get me through that.
Yeah,
I love that album still. Even though I know there are flaws. The production on that album is terrible.
It's really bad. But it is the superior album.
It is. I will say production, you know what? let's go ahead and get to the review.
To the review?
Yeah, review. Okay, well, start where we normally do here. What did you think of the artwork?
Well, I have written down 4, but I think I want to downgrade it to a 3.
Okay.
And I only think about that because, like, while I was going to the bathroom just now, which totally didn't happen, I was remembering Suicide Notes and Butterfly Kisses album artwork. And I think it's probably better. And, like, this album artwork, it's super on the nose. It's a girl who is apparently becoming a vampire or is a vampire.
Yeah.
But, like, the album doesn't hold up to that promise. So, like, to tie it together, like, as a concept, it's like, okay, well, you had the idea and you just didn't follow it through musically. I do like their logo. Like, I like the flourishes on
really
the logo.
Good. Yeah.
I don't love the just block text for the curse. But, like, the model looks great. It's well photographed. Like, with the like the dark half of the face, like, the lighting is super good. So, like, it's well done as a photograph, but as an album artwork for this album in particular, I think it's just kind of middle of the road. Credit to the model, whose name is apparently Natalia Delano, and the photographer Thomas. Fuck.
The Tank Engine.
Thomas B. Yeah, potatoes. No, the Tank Engine is right. I think you're right. It starts with a, it starts with a B, so it's foreign sounding, so it's the Tank Engine. But Bagucky, I think.
Baguki.
Bulgogi.
Bulgogi is delicious.
Yep. I'm not going to say the other word that came to mind. I'm going to leave that there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also gets photographed a lot.
Oh, man. Ugh.
Yep. We can cut that out. What did you think of the
artwork? Also, that made me think of Shapoopy from Family Guy.
Yeah.
Even though it's not from Family Guy, but...
The girl who's hard to get.
Yep.
But you can win her yet.
That's... With the thought of what you didn't say, and in that line... Oh, boy. I'm never going to be able to hear that the same way again.
This is off the rails way more than the last half of this album.
Oh, boy. I really like the artwork. I really love... The logo for the band is really good. The block lettering for the curse isn't great, but I do love how it fits.
Yeah.
Like, so that's aesthetically pleasing. It's kind of overstated and understated at the same time.
Right.
I landed on a 4. I think, honestly, that's...
Yeah.
If it's one of the best things about the album for me is the album cover. So, yeah, I gave it a 4. Most of the things I mirror most of what you said. It's fine.
I don't like the deluxe edition artwork at all.
No. I do like the color palette that they used for it.
Yeah.
Like the kind of rusty gold sort of thing, but
yeah.
Yeah. Well, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but production then versus now?
We did, and I had written down a 3, but I do want to bump it up to a 4.
Okay.
because the actual music is really well produced.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, the verse now part, especially for me for this one, I'm like, man, I don't remember it being as good as it. I didn't care, I don't think, at the time.
Right.
So that's probably why. But yeah.
I noticed a few parts that were like super loud compared. Like most of the intros start loud, or just the instrumentals start pretty loud.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think they let him cup the mic, which is never a strong decision.
No. No.
But maybe again, it's a Jesse situation where he's just maybe not a great vocalist, and that was the best they could do. Well,
I gotta tell you,
I gotta cup the mic.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather Jesse from Misery Signals done that than double all the fucking vocals and pan them hard left and hard right. Drives me nuts.
That's fair.
Anyway, I talked about
producer,
that way more than I needed to.
Kind of a big name Canadian producer, G.G. Garth. He produced a lot of shit. And apparently his dad was also a big deal producer, Jack Richardson, who produced like Alice Cooper, The Guess Who, Badfinger. Kind of like shaped some of a pioneer of the music recording industry in the 60s and 70s. There you go.
Huh. That's really cool. Man, this guy did Kitty Spit and Mudvayne LD50.
Yep. Testament, and Ugly Kid Joe, Voodoo Glow Skulls, like
Spine Shank, 40 Below Summer.
Fuck yes.
And Trapped. Did this guy like own nu metal for a minute? Wow,
must have.
This is wild.
You Me at 6. 40 Below Summer, man, and Spine Shank.
Yeah. Talk about two nu metal bands that even people into nu metal don't even remember.
No, we do. We always. Yeah. I start my lawnmower that way every time.
That's great. That's fantastic. What was the was it a snowboard video game that Spine Shank was on?
Yeah.
What was that called?
I don't remember if it was Shaun White's at that point. It may have been 1080. I think it was 1080.
Yeah, that's going to be something I'm going to have to look into later. I really like Spine Shank. Anyway, what were we talking about?
Production.
I landed on a 4. It's very, very good. I do wish that, and listening to later albums, Alex doesn't do that. So I don't know if that was who knows. But it is what it is. I think the drums on this album specifically
really good.
Sound amazing. It's just crazy how good they are. And the bass too. We're in another situation at a time where a lot of people were going nothing but high end and treble, and they did not do that this album. Especially, I mean, like we've talked about it quite a bit, that Suicide Notes and Butterfly Kisses is the superior album, but from a production standpoint, it's not even close. I mean, the production on that is like objectively bad, and the production on this is objectively good. So good on them for taking such a leap forward. So yeah, 4 from me as well.
Oh yeah.
This one continues to be the one that's the weirdest for me. Yeah. I think on a lot of these albums. Impact at the time. I'm going to need you to probably go first on this as well, because I don't know how I land.
I didn't take a stance. I landed on a dead 3. Because Atreyu...
That is unfortunate.
Atreyu definitely had an impact, and definitely in 2002 with Suicide Notes, huge impact.
Yeah, we covered Lip Gloss in Black with 138. Yeah,
lots. This album in particular, definitely still had its impact, but
Yeah.
probably less so, and probably was one of the things where we started to be like, oh, this album is probably pushing me in a different direction than
Yeah.
this album is going. But we still like the ones that were good or that we were into then, like,
Yeah.
were definitely still super impactful.
Yeah, I mean, hugely so. That was my point with this, is what the confusion I had was, I can't, like, Atreyu's a 5,
Yeah.
but this album isn't.
And some of the songs on the album are probably still like heavy 4s, but the album as a whole is
Yes.
maybe a 2, because I really dropped off of them like halfway through this album.
Same. And apparently to an extent that I didn't even realize. So, yeah, no, I'm with. So I landed on a 3 then. Same reason. Atreyu gets it to a 3,
Yeah.
whereas if they didn't have the previous impact, this would be even less. But
Yeah.
I can't give them less than that for anything, because we owe them a great deal.
Yeah.
So,
And we probably
yes.
pulled some of the weird stuff that they did on this album into ours.
Certainly.
Like decisions
no way
to
around
do
it.
the dead stop in 3/4 of the way through the song. Maybe
Yeah.
figure out how we could do it better, but we still ripped it off.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Boy, what an anticlimactic thing that ended up being.
So, how much did you enjoy listening to it today?
I can't justify my way into anything other than a 3 here, just
Okay.
because I so have, like, half the album's pretty solid,
Yeah.
half of it's not.
Yeah.
When I like it a lot. When I don't, I really don't.
Yeah.
It's just so. What do people say now? Mid? That's a thing, right?
I have no
People say-
idea.
I think that's a thing when something is mediocre. People call it mid. If that's accurate, whether it's accurate or not, let me know. I would love to hear about it. But I think that's a thing younger people say, and
This
I
is-
think
Definitely the meatiest of okra.
yes, absolutely. So yeah, I don't even really have a strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got nothing. It's I was really happy to start it and really happy when it was over.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah,
That's
what about
a
you?
great way to put it.
Yeah,
Man, I wanted it to be higher, and then by about halfway through, I was like, I want this to be lower. But like,
Yeah.
I still had to give it a 3, because there are some bangers on here, and like,
agreed.
there's some parts that
Yeah.
are like pretty cool.
I mean, the beginning of Bleeding Mascara is one of the best
It's really great.
intros of all time. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, and I think they come back equally strong after an interlude with corseting.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think they did almost the exact same song on the next album
I can
as
see
Bleeding Mascara. Like, I think it's like a carbon copy. Maybe it's the next album. What was the... Yeah, I think that's the cover. That makes sense. 2006. I went to a party at Nick Morrow's in Dayton. And
Hell
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure that was the album he showed me in his car as a song he was super
Death
pumped
Grip
about.
on
And I remember
Yesterday.
thinking, yeah, and I remember thinking, like, yeah, this is really sick. And it was really cool, too, when they did it 2 years before on Bleeding Mascara. And that's when he made fun of Winter Sun's, or not Winter Sun, Insaphirum Iron's synth parts. He goes, yeah, this is really good. And they really don't care how bad that synth sounds, huh? And I was like, nope.
All right, dick.
Fair enough. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. All right. Well,
Yeah.
boy, this is about as middle of the road as
As this album
we've
is.
got. Yeah, 100%. This is. I don't know. I think we've oversold albums on this podcast before, and I think we've undersold albums on this podcast before.
For sure.
This is absolutely accurate. Like,
this is dead middle.
Yeah, you gave it a 13 out of 20. I gave it a 14 out of 20 for a total of 27.
That's so better than, like, I even feel like it should be a 20 out of 40.
Yeah. Honestly, it's the production and album art did it a lot of favors. I will say.
Yep.
So, 27 it is for Atreyu the Curse. What is your favorite song on the album?
I think it's Corseting, which surprises me, but it's just after the interlude. It's kind of heavy. It's quick. Yeah. Like, I would have liked to have picked something with Brandon's vocals because I do like them a lot, but just in the overall context of this album, I think that was my favorite song.
Well, I think that's a good call because that's the one I was going to pick, and my backup was... I have a little bit of a tie between Bleeding Mascara and The Flesh, a Tomb, This Flesh, a Tomb at track 4, but I'll go with Bleeding Mascara just because it's one of the only songs, if not the only song, that I've kind of continued to listen to as time's gone on. So
that's fair.
I'll give it to Bleeding Mascara again. As previously stated, You Give Love a Bad Name will be on the TDTL Favorites playlist, which, if you do not know, is a Spotify playlist in which we add our favorite song choices, keep that going, and then apparently pretty often now a third song from the album that we think should not be overlooked. I mean, I think this is only like the fourth time that's happened, so it's not too bad, but
it's not.
But
I will say, like, an honorable mention from me was You Eclipsed by Me. I think that song's really good. Just good all the way through.
Agreed. And the lyrics on that are really good too.
I was gonna say that I hate the lyrics though.
Really? I like them a lot. They basically are... I don't think they're about a woman, so that's
true.
A nice change of pace. And it seems like he's trying to dethrone a vampire lord, like straight out of Underworld. I think that's what that's roughly about. So that's kind of cool.
I guess I just explicitly don't like the one lyric, the "You kiss the ring, motherfucker."
Oh, it's terrible. That's the worst thing.
Okay, good.
Yeah. The only... In context, it's not bad because it does...
I can see that.
I think it's genuinely about a one vampire lord trying to overthrow another vampire lord, so that's kind of cool. I'm going to have to watch Underworld after this, I think.
That's a great call.
Yeah. I have the box set. The only one it didn't have was the newest one. Criminally underrated, the newest, which is still probably 20 years old at this point, but...
Yeah. So for anyone out there who's listening to this, if you were thinking about listening to The Curse by Atreyu, just watch Underworld instead. You'll be a lot happier.
For sure, yeah. 2016, Blood Wars. That's newer than I thought.
That was 8 years ago, which is a lot.
I mean, that's true, but I think I just kind of associate Underworld with 2005, 6, basically. Yeah. That's when the second one came out, I think, 06. Anyway, watch Underworld. If you haven't seen Underworld movies, I don't know. Do those hold up? Should we be championing those? Okay. I could easily see that being a thing where people watch and go, this is fucking terrible, and me going, you're not wrong. However...
Yeah. ...
What else do we got? Check us out on Instagram if you want.
Yep.
TDTL_podcast. If no one's reading my hashtags, you should. Sometimes they're very funny, and I'm very proud. Yeah. And I don't know. Maybe don't listen to this album. Maybe listen to the first half and then listen to the album that came before it because it's way better.
Yeah. And, I mean, for whatever it's worth, check out Atreyu. Like, there's some good musicians. If you're into it, cool. If you're not, then that's totally fine too. Like, middle of the road is where we're living with this band.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised now that they're one of the ones that continued. Like, out of all the ones that didn't.
Yeah.
Like, we're in a world right now where Every Time I Die isn't a band, but Atreyu is, and it's weird. Yeah.
Maybe 20 years from now, we'll look back and be like, this is a masterpiece. But today, it's weird, and so's this. So I guess...
Yep.
With that, he's been Brad, I've been Josh, and we've been 2 decades too late.